Everything bros, talking everything bros. You already know that anything goes with the Everything Bros podcast.
Hi, and welcome back, everyone, to the Everything Bros podcast. My name is Tony, the middle bro.
I'm Will. I'm the oldest bro.
I'm Matt. I'm the youngest bro.
Today's topic is going to be a good one. We're titling this one Perceived Persona. Today, we're going to be talking about what you think you're good at, what other people think you're good at, what motivated these changes. A lot of good stuff today. And as always, the oldest bro is going to kick us off.
I feel like my entire openings are always just self-deprecating. Like last week I said, I don't know what I have for breakfast. And to be honest, when you said, hey, we're going to do strengths and weaknesses, I said, I don't know what I'm good or bad at. And by the way, I hope people noticed the alliteration to all these titles. I think Tony takes a lot of pride going into these. So I really enjoyed the perceived persona.
That's my strength.
You know, it's so funny because I feel like I have skills and things that I've worked on that I didn't think I would need to have going into like career wise specifically. And it's so funny how I just look back at the things I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be good at this, or I don't know if I'm going to have to do this. And now they're things that I do so frequently. I really think that I'm decent at communicating to large groups of people. I mean, that's my job. And that's something that I think people take for granted a lot of the time, is the idea that being good at just communicating to people is really, really important. A quick story side note is I was doing those, and Tony knows about this. I was like doing those live streams with that one cycling YouTuber where he was doing like question and answers like over like a group workout. And it was like an easy cycling workout. And at the end of it, I was just talking to this guy. His name is Jeff. And he said, I really like having you on, dude. You're just pretty like natural and comfortable in terms of just, you know, answering these questions and talking to people. I said, yeah, I think it's because I'm a teacher. So those are really applicable skills.
I think if I were to say what your strength is, seeing you work as a teacher, and obviously knowing you for many years, and like the way you've sort of developed. I've known you a few years, yeah,
just a few,
give or take.
You know, say we're long-term friends, you know, it comes and goes for sure.
My dear friend and colleague is my favorite phrase of professional life.
But I mean, something that you're really good at, which is really hard to come by, is not only are you a good communicator, but you know what it is that they need to get.
Yeah.
And I think when people talk, sometimes it's like you just not knowing where your end point is. Like they're just saying something to get something out of their mouth sort of deal. But you're like, once they get it, that's it. Succinct and done sort of deal.
Yeah. And that's something I was going to say is it's called reading the temperature of the room. You know, it's kind of knowing where a group of people is at and knowing how to pivot that conversation or how you're maneuvering that. So, but I don't know. I also feel like that's a kind of a very generic thing. Like I'm a people person. Sounds very, but I don't know. I guess that's what we're looking at.
Different kinds of people persons. That didn't really. I don't know the good way to say that.
People. There's different kinds of people.
Yeah, that sounds weird.
It's like an alien. It's like an alien trying to communicate what humans are like. Like, yeah,
hello, fellow persons.
I am a people's person. Yes,
but
indeed.
Like you are a good people person in a professional capacity, and not everyone is. You know, some people are a good people person in a social capacity, but not.
Whoa. Are you saying that I'm a dweeb when it comes to hanging out with people?
More so. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm totally kidding.
Yo, that was on the tip of his tongue.
He was going to say something else that was meaner. I know it.
Yeah, I would. No, but like just in general, like you're exceptional at it in the professional capacity.
Well, thank you.
No problem. And I think that
this
stems
is a great
from
conversation
being in a
for our
very,
egos.
Yeah, really. Being in a very, don't worry, we'll get to the bad soon. Being in a very
we'll get to weaknesses.
very formal profession as a teacher. Not formal, but you have to be professional in
I think
all
that
hours of the
I think
day.
professional is the word. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
the main qualifier to this whole thing.
So
Mhm.
what do you think then is a weakness that you have, Will? Because then me and Matt will confirm whether this is true or not.
Man, I was thinking about this so much today. And I had a conversation with a student, and I acknowledged, and I think everybody has this. Again, it's going to sound generic, but when it comes to being a teacher, and when it comes to either, you see a student frustrated, whether they're frustrated at you or whether they're frustrated at what they're doing, or something goes wrong for them that maybe has nothing to do with you, or maybe it has everything to do with you. It could go either way. It's really challenging not to take that stuff personally, especially in a creative arts field where what we do is so intrinsic to our personality. Like, I've tied up so much of my self-worth in my career and my job, as I'm sure you guys have too, and every other like 20 something year old has, where you're just in school for most of your life, and then you get out of school and all of a sudden you have to find worth in other things. That's something I have a really hard time distinguishing, is that if something goes wrong for a student, or if something is not going well in my classroom, or something that could not have anything to do with me, I find it really hard to not take that personally. And it really affects me in a lot of negative ways that I sometimes can't cope with. And it's only heightened by all this pandemic stuff and virtual learning and everything that every teacher everywhere is dealing with.
That yeah, I would definitely agree that is one of your weaknesses, but that's more of like the separation between like your own personal side and then like your work side. But in reality, this whole like this balance between the two is more realistic than this split between the two. Like if you're trying to split it, that's literally trying to split your brains or split your experiences sort of deal. When
Right.
like in reality, that's like one does affect the other. Like you have a good, maybe relaxing weekend away from work and then you come back to work refreshed. That was a direct result of something that was personal. You know what I mean? Like, so of course it
Right.
relates to each other. So, I mean, that's a pretty fair weakness.
Yeah, and I think that even stems into another weakness of mine that I'm thinking of now that we're getting the ball rolling. I'm just like, gosh, I'm terrible at everything. It's making my brain work. Is that I I will come up with a lot of barriers to entry on certain tasks, or I get into this like ideal complex where there needs to be ideal circumstances in order for me to get a task done, or in order for me to do something. In our little pre-podcast talk, I was talking about how I'm a shill for coffee shop time, and like going to a coffee shop and getting work done. And I loved the setup of that, of I'm gonna go, I'm gonna get my coffee, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna get my work done. um and that's one example of something where like I liked the situationalness, to make up a word, of that, and that was something I really enjoyed. But not having that, it's like, ugh, I can't I can't do it.
So you like a thing to be particular. Like you want it to be in a particular way, very specific preferences before you get to doing something. And I would
Oh
argue
yeah.
Matthew is almost the exact opposite. Matthew needs very little barrier to give something a try.
Matthew's like the
he-
kind of person that can fall asleep anywhere.
yeah, it's that's
That kind of person. He's that kind of person, but about anything.
I think Matthew's really good weakness, and I don't know if you know this about yourself, Matthew, is that it's once you've gotten the idea for something, it's like all your ideas are like a cliff, and there's just a bunch of like cement balls like sitting on the very edge of a cliff. And every time someone brings something up to Matthew, it just nudges the ball and it just goes zoosh, like really
Yeah.
quick down.
No, absolutely. Like once I like get an idea that I like, I'll spend like 4 days in a row just with that. And yeah, I totally agree. Like I remember I was like, I kind of want to try making like a motion capture like setup or something like of my own. and I have this idea. And then I spent 4 days buying stuff on Amazon, and by the end of the week, I had a prototype that worked. So I definitely agree. Though I didn't do some schoolwork during that week.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was fine.
Matthew was the same way when he made these up. When we were first talking about the ideas for this podcast, and I said we should do the hair like silhouette headline with the sunglasses for all of
Yeah.
us. And I think Matthew literally churned these out within the span of like 3-4 days. And I don't think they were an insignificant amount of work. And he's like, "Yeah, send me a picture of you wearing your sunglasses and do this." I'm like, "Okay, he's going for it."
You want to know what's even
no
funnier? Although it seemed like that, it was in the span of like an hour that I did all of them.
Of course, it
Because
was.
I was just cranking through them, and the version of our logo that's on like Spotify and in the videos thumbnails that's black with our like inverted colors, that was a random idea that came to me at like 3 a.m. and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do that real quick.
Please tell me you got out of bed just to execute that.
I've not for that, but I have done that before. I've gotten out of bed to do something because I'm like, wait, I should do this before.
Are you the kind of person? And I know Tony is like this. I think Tony. Okay, let me tie this back in because Tony is so good at facilitating. That's why he's the one for the podcast. You know, it's so interesting what each of us brought to this podcast, and I might relate to this back to the podcast because I think it plays into all of our strengths. Right? I was the one who presented the idea. You know, I was very big picture about it. I said, "Guys, I have this idea. I've had this idea for a while. Here's what I imagine it to be." Matthew was like, "Okay, I can totally handle the logos," and he edits the podcast. Tony, though, was like, "I'm going to handle the topics." And he facilitates groups of people. Nothing is more infamous than the complete, just obliterated mess of a family gathering than the fold and crumple discussion of 2018 2019, where he's like, how can I just make this family gathering a little bit more interesting? And you kept bringing up like, yes, you have this point, but what about this idea? And it went on. I mean, it was literally 2.5 hours. So I don't know. I was a little unfocused with this whole thing because my brain, that's one thing I'm terrible at, is staying focused and talking too much. If you look at how much each of us talk in this podcast, but Tony's really good at just facilitating things and moving things forward.
The facilitator is my skill.
The facilitator.
Yeah, for sure.
I can rally the troops together, but I can also tear them apart.
Yeah, you can bring people together, but you can tear them apart just as quickly.
That's it. The double-edged sword of my strength. It's also a weakness, sadly.
Yeah. But really, isn't a lot of our strengths in some way manifest into a weakness?
Yeah, I mean, like mine manifests into poor sleep management, poor time management, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would say that for me, like the fact that I'm halfway decent with people means that I have to work doubly as hard to stay organized or to manage all of the thoughts in my head. Like I live off of to-do lists. If I don't write something down, I forget it. It doesn't happen. It doesn't get done.
No, and it's hard because it's hard to take up like what you're going to take up as that like new skill, for example. Like doing a to-do list is something that maybe not a lot of people are doing, but then they got to, take that up and then it's supposed to add value in some sort of way. So like it's trying to find new skills that's going to become your strength, or you see someone else's strength and you try to like adapt it into your own life.
And here's a question I wanted to ask that kind of made me think of this when you were just talking, Tony, is what's a skill that you, like a deficiency that you had to develop into a skill that you now consider yourself proficient at? What's something that you got forced into being good at? Like when I became a teacher and all of the different simultaneous projects and literal small human beings I had to manage. I mean, there's so much that has to be done. So in terms of project management, organization, like if there's one thing that I improved on, it was those things in particular. Or like pandemic induced, all of a sudden, I'm a music teacher and all of a sudden we have these virtual concerts and whatever, like video editing. You know, I like hit up one of those YouTubers that had the the Skillshare ad, and I hit one of those up for a Final Cut Pro Skillshare tutorial, and now I'm, you know, not like a great video editor, but I got the basics down.
I tell the story actually a lot to friends. So if anyone knows me kind of closely, you'll know that I've told this story, and like it actually is a big part of me, which is not necessarily a skill that I've taken up, but I've developed as a lot. It's funny that you say that my skill is being a facilitator sort of deal, because you like, you know, go back in time to baby Tony uh in like 4th or 5th grade or something like that, and you get a picture of a Tony that is not, you know, present day Tony. You get a picture of a kid who was really, really like socially awkward and like just couldn't get along with different people. It was like get angry a lot, like temper tantrum sort of deal, and like chronically bullied and sort of deal. So like you just get like kind of this sheltered person who's really defensive, and over time, very slowly and surely, like picking up these other like social cues of like, okay, how am I gonna interact with this person, or like how am I gonna react to this situation, and then a very conscious effort over years and years and years of trying to like be that more open person, and like leads me all the way, I guess, to being a facilitator sort of deal, or a, you know, leader is what I would like to call that skill. But maybe that's just me.
Is it on your resume? Is this under? Maybe we should just like list the things, you know, that section that people put like, you know, related skills and experience. We should just list that off on our resumes. Like these are the things I think I'm good at. Proficient in Microsoft Word. You know, it's funny you bring that up.
So funny you make that joke, because all of my skills are just software.
And Matthew's like, when I put down I'm good at Word, like I am good at it. I have never once not accidentally lost a document in Microsoft Word.
I have never made a typo.
I've never had the yellow underline.
You know what's
or
one
the
thing
red underline
that I am perpetually fearful of is, and one of the things that I had to get better at is I was never the strongest writer. I was always, and you know, it's so funny. I really dislike as a teacher putting kids in boxes like, you're a math and science kid, or oh, you're a reading writing kid. I think it's such a dumb way to organize people and their skills. You know, in music, whenever you're working on something, nothing is, you know, there's such a thing as raw talent, right? And maybe we're going to get into a different conversation for a different episode that I'm making.
Can you just be a crescendo kid? Like I only do crescendos.
I only do crescendos. Yeah,
I can't do anything
no
else.
other
I'm
values
loud
control.
all the time. I'm a forte guy.
I'm only a forte guy.
But, you know,
So you're a
there's things
percussionist.
Let's be honest, man. Those little bell kits that they play on, there's no dynamic contrast on those things. But no, the point I'm trying to make is, you know, we get put in boxes. Like Tony was put in the box of this shy, sheltered kid that, you know, I think you also never get the opportunity in some ways to develop or understand that things you are not good at are not what define you, but are just deficiencies that you can then improve on. So for me, writing, the biggest thing that forced that skill for me was writing emails to multiple hundreds of people, CCing my principal on it, and then her emailing me back saying, you made a typo. Like, that's the kind of stuff that just deepens that
It's out
fear.
of nightmares. It's out of nightmares for sure.
That's the thing of nightmare, right? But, you know, I always thought like, I'm not a good writer, but I wish I was told that, hey, you're not going to have to write like 5-paragraph argumentative rhetorical essays, but instead, maybe you should figure out how to write emails. And I'm sure Matthew's not sending emails like that. So, you know, maybe that's not something he necessarily worries about, because maybe a lot of the professors in a game design major just like email like they text, but I don't know.
Oh my god, dude. They email. Yeah, they.
Call them out, Matt. Call them out.
Most of the time, dude, the funniest thing that's ever happened to me, I think, is I emailed a professor and he responded to me on Discord. And we had never messaged before on Discord. He PM'd me on Discord. And I was like, wait, who is this? And then I looked at shared servers and it was all the school ones. I was like, oh.
Did you text back who dis? Is that how you did
No,
that?
it's like, Thank you. And then I changed my stupid Discord picture to something more professional.
That's what he's got to be good at. Do you think, Matt, that like let's go to like what Will's chatting about? Like he had to learn how to do that, but he got it from social cues, kind of like. I mean, in theory, you could make all the typos you wanted if no one's watching, sort of deal. But do you think?
Oh,
you
I
have
make
to-
all those typos when no one's watching. Trust me.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I mean, like you're texting sort of deal. But I think one of Matthew's skills that I don't have, which is the being able to just drown out sort of other people, or like put this little box around. It's like, nope, I'm gonna do this sort of deal without the influence of other people. I think that's Matthew's skill. But do you think, Matt, that that's
Yeah, I think
accurate, or you
so.
do stuff based off that?
Yeah, I think I can become really like focused on what's in front of me, and like part of that is like, screen management. Like I have a screen here, I have a screen here, and then I like put a window here, I put a window there, and I can go between all of those and not worry about what's directly to my right or behind me
Mhm.
or around me, rather is the more accurate term. I feel like, yeah, I can do that for sure.
It's like noise canceling headphones for his brain. He just
Pretty
drowns
much,
out all the
yeah.
stuff.
Like the thing about it is my weakness that really like is tied to that is I have such a hard time starting like anything, and so I have such a hard time into that getting into that mode. But when I do, there's nothing that can interrupt me. There's nothing that like stops me, and I'll just do homework for like 14 hours.
What is that called? Like the flow state, is it?
Yeah, and like I won't even realize I'm hungry until my stomach hurts. And I'm like, oh, like I should really eat. It's been like 8 hours or
I
something.
guess to the point of the analogy earlier of like you're all the the stone balls at the top of the cliff and they get over. Those are still 400-pound stones, so they still got to
Yeah.
get moved. But once they get moving, then they're
They're gone.
Zhoosh, as I said before.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Do you think then, because it's interesting, because whenever we're talking now that you're of any of your strengths, you instantly bring up your weaknesses. Do you think other people, like in your social circle, for example, see the weaknesses that you see? Or do they see a different set of ones? Or are they the same set of ones?
I think no, like in both like social and professional, like I work as a graphic designer, and they don't, and in like that, and in my program it's very project based, and it's very visually project based, not like a paper or something. And they don't see the process. They see they see a picture, basically. They see a pretty picture,
Yeah.
and that's all. And they say, I need this, or do this for the assignment. The next day it's in front of them. They don't care about the process. They don't, well, they might care, but in general, like, they don't think about it. It's there. Why the process doesn't matter. So they don't really see the potential struggles I might have had, or unless they ask. If it's like school, then they sometimes do. But yeah, not really. I don't think that's something in general that gets noticed by people around me, other than you guys, because obviously we're related. So
So then it's, in theory, they just see the good stuff. They see the final product. So maybe they just see an overrepresentation of maybe the strengths, for example, sort of
yeah,
deal.
like, yeah, for sure. Because like I'll make like a advanced like model or something really cool, and I'll show someone like, oh my god, that's so cool! I can't even believe you can do that. I'm like, I mean, you can do it too, because it took me like 36 hours of work. I'm like, if you put 36 hours of work into this, you could probably do it too. Like, it's yeah.
It definitely
So-
depends on who is like looking at it. You guys ever seen that? I'm gonna take this a little less serious. You ever seen that like video of like it's like a dog staring at the camera or something, and it's like,
Mhm.
if only you could see yourself the way I see you or something. And you think of like a dog, of they're just unconditional love that they're giving you. And if you see how they're seeing you, then it's just all these amazing, immaculate things. Like, I mean, it definitely depends on who is giving that. So like Will, for example, like you keep talking about teacher stuff and like how students and like how your your coworkers see you, but I mean, like, what about like friends, like other people in your, as you're talking about, like your um like artistic
I have a
circle?
fun
How
sto-
do those people see?
I have a fun story that's somewhat related but not related. So I remember when I was in middle school, because this is back to the socially awkward Tony, that I totally remember learning how to solve a Rubik's Cube, but because I thought it would make me interesting. And I thought I would actually make friends with that when I was in middle school. No, I'm 100% serious. Um, that just made me think of that, because we're talking about social situations and social cues. And I feel like I try not to learn to think too much though about other people's perception of me in terms of what they might think I'm good or bad at. Because I think that could be a little bit paralyzing personally, because I feel like in some ways I'm so acutely aware of the mistakes I make and the things that I mess up, that the last thing I need is for my brain to tell me, hey, but have you ever thought of the fact that you messed this up, so this person thinks this of you? That just seems really really debilitating. I try and think about the people I'm around, and this is maybe because of this whole creative cluster of my groups. We call it a creative cluster, where we just get together every week and just talk about creative things and just check in with each other. That group of people is acutely focused on developing strengths creatively. We're in a creative field, and I teach a creative subject, but I think if I'm not doing things to keep my own creativity going, then I'm doing them a disservice. But yeah, I can't get caught up with what I think other people think of me, or at least people that aren't within my own inner circle. That I think, and that's what you're gonna attack.
I'm glad to visit. So you can probably guess my next question, which is, whose opinion matters?
Nobody's.
Okay, thanks for the answer.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm not taking
Tony.
notes, but I'm gonna write it down.
Be like, man, these guys are really spitting some facts here. These are some new, innovative ideas I've never thought of before.
I think there's a point, and I agree with you that, like, yeah, you can't look into it too deep, or like, you can't get everybody's opinion, for example, or look to all these different places. It's like the thing of like, why argue with a random person on the internet when it's just a random person? But if that random person is a very close friend, or if you're a professional, if it's a higher up sort of deal, like it's I think, in my opinion, is that there are people whose opinions you should look for, or
Yeah, absolutely.
you get feedback from, especially in a professional sense.
What's the phrase? Like, you're the product of like the 5 people who are like closest to you or something.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think that matters a lot, especially to tie this back into the topic. If there's something that you're terrible at, surround yourself with people who are awesome at that. Or what's the other cliche? If you're the dumbest person in the room, you're in the right room. There's all these things that, you should be surrounding yourself with people. And Tony's like, that's every room I walk into.
I'm always in the right room. That's weird.
Weird. I must be going through the right doors a lot of the time.
I'm in the right state. Like,
oh my god. Gosh,
this is a revolving door. What happened here?
You're like, man, I must be in the right room all the time, but the room is actually mirrors.
Yo, why did you?
You just mess with Tony's mind.
Oh, that's a totally different way to think about that. Be like, but I think to bring that back into focus a little bit, that sorry, now I'm just imagining myself in like a mirror fun house being like, wow, I'm so smart. Just the insanity of that.
Everyone in here is so good looking.
I know. Tell me about it.
It's the clown video or whatever. It's like you're just like looking at yourself in a mirror, but it's like all the, you get the nose and the makeup sort of deal.
Yeah, slowly apply the makeup.
Yep, this is the progression of becoming the clown. I do think that there's people, that their opinions of you, do matter. It's like with a grain of salt. And I go back to that like dog thing of like some people's opinion of you will just be so inflated, and sometimes you need that. So those are good people to keep around. AKA get a dog is what I'm trying to tell you.
I was gonna say,
Um,
Tony, you seem to be really infatuated. Like, I think you need a dog.
I agree. That's all I'm going to say there.
Yeah,
Get
I
a
mean-
cat. If they love you, you earned it.
This is true. This
That's
is
not
very
true. They're just gonna hate you forever. Those things.
Tony just doesn't understand how pets work.
I really don't.
But I think to answer whatever question you're asking, Tony, yes. Are there some people's opinions who you should care about? Yes. Should you care about everybody's opinion? No, of course not. But that's up to you to find that group of people, that those 5 people, if you will, that are gonna make or break, your group, and what's gonna be to this.
So let's go on to, I think, the last hitting point of this topic, this like personal persona, is that your greatest attribute or your greatest strength in theory will develop. So let's picture yourself like 5 years from now, a couple years from now. Will your greatest strength today hold the test of time? Do you think it's that good that it will still be your greatest strength in 5 years? Or will something else take its place? Or is there something you want to take its place that would be more valuable or would take it up?
I subscribe to the lifelong learner idea, that you should always be constantly trying to learn stuff. I would think that in terms of like the spectrum of skills that I have, or the things that I'm like, if the things I'm good at are at the top and the things I'm bad at are at the bottom, I would just like everything to just shift, just everything shift up. I think I'm a pretty good people person. I would even like to be a better people person, because that would make me a better teacher. I'm an okay cyclist. I like to ride my bike, but I like to be able to do that a little bit better, be a little bit fitter, be a little bit more in shape. I just think everything, I want it to move up. If everything is trending positively, I think I'm doing the right things. But, I would hope I'm not going to take any steps backwards in anything, or if my priorities shift in what I find important and what deficiencies personally or professionally I need to work on, then yeah, I'll make adjustments here and there.
Matt, you want to see the average go up? Is that the same idea?
Yeah, probably. I think there's some skills that could probably take the top pedestal. But I think in general, they should go up just pretty evenly. Although I do want to, just in general, be more creative, and I think my creativity is like a skill, or it's more of an attribute that I want to go up, especially working in a very artistic field.
And you're still like doing a bunch of training stuff, so not only do you want your average to go up, I imagine some of the things you have in like your lower tier, you're like first quartile, you want to go up to be that top skill, or at least very close
Absolutely.
to the top skill. I know one of my things that I'm like, I kind of have, I don't have necessarily FOMO, but I have like the fear of dropping something, like you've picked up this skill and you kind of lose it. So for me, that kind of recently was weightlifting, right? So pre-pandemic, really got into it and was very consistently for almost 2 years doing weightlifting stuff. And the pandemic hit, and then that basically had, not my choice, had to go, but filled it with running, filled it with other stuff, starting a blog and like adding more things. So there's like diversification of skills that I think should be at the top, and I think would really value being at the top. Similar to a conversation we had a few weeks ago of like, where do you see yourself in 10 years, and like having those skills? Well, I think I know what kind of skills I would want in 10 years, so I might as well get going on them now. So I think the average is a good idea, but also I have ones that are not even on my, not even, top 10 sort of deal, but I want there.
You want to make some deposits in that skill bank, buddy. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
You want to make small investments here and there, and average return rate of 7%. You might want to see some improvement later on.
The high return
You know?
rate.
Yeah.
I don't know what. I don't know what.
Yeah.
One skill I need to look into is investing.
Yeah. I want.
No,
But
sure,
I think that's the idea is like you want to bank skills. You know, I might need this later on. You don't know. You know, something could happen. Maybe, you know, you say running. Well, you could, you know, totally mess yourself up, but you know, and have to recover from an injury. But you've sort of banked that away. I guess is what I'm thinking of. Like you haven't lost those skills in weightlifting. I mean, at least in fitness, things will come back given enough time. But you're making some little deposits in the skill bank.
The same thing can kind of be said for like artistic skills. Like, you know, if you're like a sculptor, like with clay or something, like you're good at sculpting, you're good at understanding form and figure and shaping things. And if you have that skill, you're probably good at digital sculpting, which is a very different, even though they sound similar, it's incredibly different, but you have that artistic base, you have that knowledge to be able to put it into an entirely different medium. The same thing with like watercolor versus acrylic painting. Like they are different, but the techniques in painting that you need for both can help carry over.
That's like not only, you know, banking a skill, but it's also like it translates really well to other skills that can get in there. I like that a lot. I think that's
Crossover is really important.
Yeah.
That's
Like-
really cool.
Yeah. Like a 2D animator, you know, they work in 2D, they draw it by hand. They can become very great 3D animators because 2D is harder. You have to create form with less stuff. So going into 3D, they have that base and they're good to go. So, yeah.
All right. And with that, everybody, that is going to wrap it up for this episode of the Everything Bros podcast. If you have any questions or other topic ideas, feel free to email us at everythingbrospodcast@gmail.com. The music that you're listening to right now and at the beginning of the podcast is by the great Mike Harrison. And with that, that is the Everything Bros podcast, where anything goes. Thanks for listening, everybody.